Hey there folks, Brandon here. Today's the Tuesday after Dreamation, which is a convention put on by the folks at Double Exposure. They do a really great job putting on really interesting conventions that highlight a lot of indie RPGs. They're out of New Jersey, which is kind of my closest local indie con, and so if you end up going to one of those, which is Dreamation, Metatopia, or DexCon, there's a really good chance that you might end up seeing me there. Metatopia especially, I always make sure to go to, because as a burgeoning game designer, it's a great opportunity to rub some shoulders with other designers. I got back with a little bit of con crud and just dry throat and lips from horrible hotel air, but also a whole bunch of things I'm really excited to talk with you about. Choosing a topic for this video was actually really tough because I had so many different conversations with other designers and gamers that I just want to share and blurt out everything. One of the big topics I actually discussed was getting onto YouTube and trying to get the indie RPG community onto YouTube. Hopefully I'll be able to talk more about this coming up because a whole bunch of my friends and wonderful designers out there have also talked about doing short form videos like these. I think that a big thing that the indie RPG market needs to do to capture the imagination of new audiences is go to where those audiences are present. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of talk about hustle culture in the near future. But for now, I wanted to talk about something a little more GM-centric. Something that's a little bit more focused on the beginning of your game rather than kind of vaulty ideas of what the industry ought to be doing. At Dreamation, I actually only participated in 3 games. I wanted to set aside a good amount of time to do other work, but one of those games was something that was really exciting to me. Actually, all of them were really exciting to me. I played an awesome game of Pasión de las Pasiones set in a restaurant, and it was romantic and fun, and I had an amazing off-the-books game of Masks with Aaron Catano-Saez of the All My Fantasy Children podcast and Megan Dornbrock of the Modifier podcast. That'll be coming out on the Protean City Comics feed in the near future, so you'll actually get to peek in and see what went down with that. But the game that I want to talk about today is actually the other Masks game, the one that I ran on the books. As I've said on the channel before, Masks is my favorite game, and I think it can do a whole lot of really interesting stuff. What I wanted to do with this session is really focus in on the idea of playing characters like Luke Cage or like Daredevil that are part of a community and seeing the struggles of the community as their large superheroic focus. Usually when I run a game of Masks, I tend to more or less stick with the setting that's in the book and have it be very much like a hopeful, bright city that has some villains and has some hard times, but more or less has things together. There's definitely an undercurrent of anti-mutant sentiment in most of the games I run, which is partially just me loving the X-Men and the metaphor that they've presented in their comics. All of my favorite comics are ones that connect with politics and connect with understanding and belonging and everything like that. It's not any coincidence that the X-Men are a comic line that have been really successful and have stuck around. There are so many people that need to have stories about belonging in a world that doesn't want them to belong. And so I felt like I would be doing myself and the, I guess, greater Masks community a disservice if I didn't do some of that in my own games. Now, the first thing I want to say about all of this is that it's really important to get player sign-on when you're going to do something that connects to real-life issues. Racism, sexism, ableism, all of these are things that are very real and affect people on a really daily basis. And not all tables will be prepared to do that. It's important when you are bringing content like this to a table that you make sure that first off, everybody is aware that it's going to go down. Secondly, that you do so with care and support for each other. When I sent in my description of the game, I probably did myself and the other players a disservice. I didn't include the fact that I really wanted this game to be about gentrification and losing your home and having conflict between community and individual people in it. I thought bringing that pitch that nobody would want to sign up. It's really easy to assume that people won't want to engage with political ideas and things that can make them a little bit uncomfortable. But that's kind of what superhero stories are, and it's what a lot of other stories are too. And to leave those things out just ignores not only what the genre and the media is about, but people's important lived experiences. That said, I did recover things a little bit once we got to the table. It's important to make sure that players are on board with your idea. And if you're just playing in a general sort of campaign, that's a matter of being fair with your players and having open and honest conversation just as people that care about each other. But in a convention setting, it was me and 4 people I'd never met and 1 person who I knew online but had never played a game with. So that's an entirely different set of circumstances. So what's the best way to keep the interest and punch without actually putting people into a position that they are just awkwardly stuck with a heavier topic than they wanted to play today. It's all about expectation setting. When you're watching a movie and there's a sudden twist that changes how everything works, that can be a really exciting moment. I was gonna list a couple movies here, and then I realized that that's kind of spoilers for those movies, so I'm just gonna not, but assume that you've watched movies with twists before. There's one that I do feel like I can talk about a little bit because the twist is kind of the advertising versus the film itself. So, mild first 10 minutes of Cabin in the Woods spoilers are coming up. If you're not interested in that, skip ahead like 30 seconds. In Cabin in the Woods, we're introduced to teenage characters that are going to be in a standard horror scenario. But what makes this interesting is that there's a secret government organization that is actually orchestrating the entire thing. The movie is much more about comedy and kind of business mismanagement than it is about horror, even though the poster and trailers would all suggest that it's horror. Okay, I think you're back, and that's good, hopefully. If you go to a movie that has a different setting than the one that you expected, it's kind of not that big of a deal. Maybe your date is ruined, maybe your night is less fun than you thought it would be, but at worst you can walk out. That's a little bit harder in a setting that you're with other people, especially when you consider that if this is a setting where you're having a more sophisticated, difficult, emotional discussion, that's an additional level of pressure. It's hard to be the person that says, hey, this game's about racial inequality. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. People can feel like it'll come off really dismissive, and no one wants to come off that way, with good reason. And there's lots of reasons not to want to play serious content. There's nothing wrong with that. So, all that to say, set those expectations from the beginning. Let the players know what you're trying to do. First off, it'll make them more comfortable and more able to connect with the materials. When they make their characters, they'll be thinking about the plot that you started to outline, the information that you gave them from the beginning. Additionally, they'll be able to play into the tropes and ideas that are part of what you're telling. If you are telling a game that is superheroes and also a space adventure, that's different from playing a game where you're superheroes and also detectives. By giving the players the knowledge of what they're going to be doing, you really set them up to be able to build the most cool story you possibly can. In my story, the players were a new team of superheroes that were taking over after the death of a big, amazing, cool superhero that used to be in charge of their neighborhood. I wanted them to make their characters not based on that event, but based on the characters they wanted to play, but I needed them to know from the beginning that they were going to be playing characters with, 1, an intimate connection to a neighborhood, 2, authority figures that were going to be coming after them in ways that threatened the neighborhood in addition to them. In part because I had that conversation with the players, everybody made characters that had really deep connections to the neighborhood. And people made characters that had conflict with authority characters already built in. It meant that our entire comic was really grounded in the neighborhood exactly the way I wanted it to be. And it gave that level of automatic distrust that a lot of marginalized people feel on a regular basis. Now, I don't think a game can capture everything that's involved in being a person from a marginalized community, and several of my players at the table were people from marginalized communities. So that definitely helped. It's easier to tell your own stories than other people's stories. But by getting everybody on the same page, every single scene felt couched in that experience. Every interaction with authority figures was tinged with that feeling that maybe they don't have our best interests in mind. I could introduce a really obvious villain that was all about gentrification, and we knew what was going on with it. There wasn't any question of, is this a deeper topic? We just immediately were playing in it and experiencing it. Letting the players know ahead of time what everybody's goal at the table is means that you can do the truly collaborative storytelling. When everybody's on board with the idea, everybody can lean into it, everybody can provide foreshadowing, everybody can paint every single panel of your comic, every single scene in your movie, every single moment with exactly the palette that's most appropriate to it. Because what are we doing with role-playing games if not telling a story together? Why would we keep secrets from each other? Do writers keep secrets from directors? Maybe. I know nothing about the film industry. That could totally be a thing that people do. But by making sure everybody's on the same page, we not only make our tables more pleasant and like more emotionally safe, we also give the opportunity to work together on a deeper level. I loved the game that I had, and I'm so excited to have played it with my players. And I look forward to many more games where I get just as political, or just as deep, or just as serious, or focus on one topic. It doesn't even need to be a serious topic. Sometimes I want to go and bring my characters into space, and that's awesome. Just one last example, and then I'm going to let you go. A couple of Metatopias ago, I played Kevin Petker's game The Ward. This was a playtest, and so it wasn't exactly a normal play situation. But Kevin told us that he was looking for somebody to test the intimacy move. I have a game about telenovelas, Pasión de las Pasiones, check it out. But needless to say, a little bit of romance is something that I really like in a game. So I was able to volunteer, and we were able to tell a story that made sure that rule came into play. That's a playtest, but there's nothing stopping you from looking at your teammates at the table and saying, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we did a little bit of romance? Or wouldn't it be fun if we got a little subversive and we fought against the authorities a little bit more than we normally do? You can do that every single game. There's nothing stopping you. You can communicate with your table every single game. When I'm recording Protean City, lots of times I'll tell the players the feel that I'm kind of going for, because I'm a pretty good GM. But I can't just automatically make people feel things. But when all the players come together and try to make everybody feel the same things, that's when you really capture that emotion. Anyway, Dreamation was a blast, and it was amazing seeing everybody. I had such a good time, and I can't wait to see people at the next convention I end up at. When one of those is coming up, I'll make sure that you know, so we can maybe get a game in, or at least have some game discussion. If you have experiences of goal posting at the table, or taking on topics that are a little bit more serious, let me know. Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. If you want to hear more game discussion, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. And if you want to be really sure you don't miss anything, ring that bell. You'll get notifications. You know the drill. You can also find me on Twitter at Dr. Captain Kobold, and be sure to catch my streaming at twitch.tv/drcaptaincobald or twitch.tv/Latin Explosion. That's another one that I anticipate tackling some racial issues as the months go on. It's been fantastic talking with you. I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, keep doing good in the world that hates and fears you.